Welcome to NASPA Tonight.
This is all of your Scrabble news in 25 minutes or less.
I'm Josh Greenway.
I'm Jackson Smylie.
Let's talk about Scrabble.
And the time starts now. We're going to try to keep the show to 25 minutes this week. We had a couple guests that were going to come on. The lovely and dearest Evan Borofsky and Sean Abbasi.
We appreciate those guys. We love those guys.
They are great people. But unfortunately, we had some tech issues, and we could only get them on with video and no audio. And as pretty as they are, I feel like it doesn't work to just have them on screen without speaking for half an hour. So thanks for them. Hopefully, we'll get you guys on in some future weeks. And
we've got a packed show. We've got a packed agenda. So what are we talking about first, Jackson?
We've got some headlines. First headline is poll results. We did another poll this week. This week's question is, should we have playoffs at Division 1 in Nationals? And it was a very split poll this time. We didn't have the dominating performance like we had last week. This time it was what, 54 to 52 in favor of having playoffs. So people are undecided. We had some comments this week, not the 350 we had last week, but it was pretty good. We're going to get to that later in our controversial topic discussion.
And we want to know what you think in terms of playoffs, no playoffs. So make sure you're commenting on the video and telling us what your opinion is. But we're going to get into it. But let's first talk about the second headline. What's the second headline, Jackson?
Is the Ottawa tournament that Josh and I both just came back from.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I almost forgot already. An interesting stat that I looked at today was this is the 14th tournament that we have attended together in 2018.
How is that even possible?
I mean, I've attended 17 tournaments or 18 tournaments
in
2018, and you were at 14 of them.
Okay.
So I think Cross Table should add a statistic on its site for like who have you been to the most tournaments with each year. I think that'd be cool. You must be up there, I'm sure.
Yeah, this would be like your tournament BFF or your TFF.
In our case,
does that make sense?
Like, the opposite of BFF. I mean,
tournament frenemies.
Tournament frenemies, sure.
Yeah.
So I think it's a cool statistic. Ottawa was a lot of fun. Matthew Tunnicliffe hosted most of the tournament at his place.
Yeah, it was. That was super nice. A big shout out to Matt. He had his apartment and he had his parents' place.
Yeah, he kicked his parents to the curb. I saw them sleeping in the backyard a couple times. They didn't look very happy. And
now you were at the swanky house that was his parents' place, and I was at Matt's 2-bedroom apartment.
So what we're gonna do, and we're gonna try this. It's and here's Matthew Tunnicliffe's cat. We're gonna show you. Josh snagged a little video of the nameless cat. Some of you may not know Matthew Tunnicliffe's cat does not have a name. Once he starts playing Scrabble, he'll get a name, but so far he's nameless. We also want to encourage, and this was going to be one of our separate headlines. Yeah. We'll get back to Ottawa in a second. Is because cats are a thing in the Scrabble community, on the internet, stuff like that. When you see a cat on the show, could you throw a meow up into the comments? That would be amazing. Maybe a purr. A purr would be good too. For Matthew Tunnicliffe's cat. I'm sure he's meowing in this video.
Now, Jillian can barely hear you. Is your mic on?
I assume so. I'll speak a bit louder and I'll speak closer to the mic. So also, if anyone has a cat out there, please send us a video of your cat. They can star on the show, just like Tunnicliffe's cat is starring on this show.
How cute is that cat?
I love this cat. Great. Top 10 cats. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely top 10 cats. So back to our Ottawa headline. We're going to do this thing. We're each going to describe our Ottawa experiences in 1 minute or less.
But because when you try to tell somebody this is what happened to me at a tournament, they don't care because it's boring.
It's very boring.
So we thought what we would try to do this time, and Jillian, if you can throw into the comments whether you can hear Jackson any better, that would be super helpful.
I will try to talk loudly.
But we're going to try to describe each other's tournament in 60 seconds because we thought that would be more fun. So I'm going to start off this process. Are you all right with that?
I'm ready to hear what happened to me.
Okay, Jackson went to Ottawa with Jackson. I just saw a comment. Where is Peaches? Jackson went to Ottawa with high hopes, hoping to win this tournament. But as usual, that didn't necessarily happen. What Jackson did was he hung out with all the experts like he always does. He went to bed super early. He prepared. He quackled in between games. And he did end up cashing. He finished at, was it 15-6? 14-7.
Even better.
Cashed $180. And only did so by winning the last game. Anyway, it was all a mix right at the end, but he managed to sneak into third place. And otherwise, I think he had a pretty good time.
That is almost exactly what happened.
All right, I'm going to switch mics now. I'm inadequate, says Sean. That much is true. So that is almost exactly what happened. I actually lost my last 2 games, but that's pretty much the same thing as winning the last 2, so we'll call it even. I will go ahead and describe your tournament experience in 1 minute or less. So Josh went to Ottawa with 0 expectations. We drove in a car with people that had high expectations, and Josh didn't even know what division he was playing in. He didn't even know where his score sheets were or what his rating was. So he went into Ottawa just trying to have a good time, and he stayed at Matthew Tunnicliffe's apartment, only got locked out a couple times, and everything worked out for him. And then suddenly he found himself at 14-4 in second place. No one was expecting this because he was probably 0-4 at some point. No one knew what was going on. He didn't know what was going on. Suddenly he thinks he can win the tournament, and he starts trying in the games. And then obviously he goes 0-3 in the final 3 games to come in 4th place, just out of the money. And that's the story of Josh Greenway's Ottawa experience.
So we had the same record, right? Let's see if this works. We're going to try putting the microphone between us and let us know if you can hear Jackson.
Please let us know who you can hear and how well.
So, yeah, that's what happened in Ottawa. Always pick your roommates carefully. As a result of a little situation, I ended up coming into the first game with very little time on my clock. I had like 5 minutes on my clock and managed to win the game. So that was kind of cool.
So we're going to move forward from these headlines. We're going to move into tournament talk. So we had a couple predictions last week, as always.
Yes.
And Josh, remind me of the score between us before this week.
I think the score. Now, I checked the sheet where we've been tracking all of this. Oh, that's right. I didn't because you said you were going to make that sheet. So I believe you're 2. Excuse me. I believe you're 3 ahead of me at this point. Is that correct?
If my memory serves me, I am up 6-3 right now.
Right.
So I was looking to extend my lead, and that I did because we predicted a few tournaments. We predicted the Rockaway Beach Collins only extravaganza, and Josh picked Dave Wiegand top seed. I picked Evans Clinchy second seed. Neither of them won. Neither of them even cashed. Chris Lipe dominated 17-3. Congratulations, Chris.
Former world Scrabble Championship runner-up. Great job.
And then we predicted,
and that looked like a fun tournament, but I don't know why they didn't have live coverage there.
Yeah, I know we saw a few complaints on Facebook about some live coverage inadequacies. Shout out to whoever made those complaints.
But it looks like a lovely tournament. People will be interested in what's going on there. So that would be our recommendation.
We also predicted Ottawa. We predicted the Collins division, and we predicted TWL. In TWL, I predicted that Matthew Tunnicliffe would win, and Josh predicted that Jason Lee would win, and neither of us were right. Some dude from Houston flew in, went 17-4, stole all of our money and our rating, and most importantly, our pride.
Well, none of my rating, but I will. Joey, the K, wanted me to give a shout out that his prediction almost came true of Josh Jr. dominating that field, but he
did dominate for a while,
wrong too.
And finally, Ottawa CSW division. I picked Adam Logan. Josh picked Matthew O'Connor, and I extend my lead to 7-3.
So I'm going to need some more help
work to
from future guests. So if you're good for predicting who's going to win tournaments, if you can let me in. I saw Jeff Theveno in the audience earlier, and this is a topic that I talked with him about, that there should be a way of like doing predictions or odds or stuff like that. So anyway, maybe he can throw me some advice.
So for this upcoming week, we have 3 tournaments we're going to predict. The first one
now
is...
for tournaments, Jillian just threw in the suggestion that someone should film what happens after hours.
That might not be legal for reasons we cannot share.
And all these young experts will be asleep.
That's the real issue. You can't film people while they're sleeping. So.
Okay, let's go. The upcoming tournaments.
Biggest one this week is Yazoo, Mississippi. It wins the prize for the coolest name of a town. Josh, you're trailing. I'm going to let you have the first pick.
Oh, right. Well, so, oh my God. I don't know what to do other than go with the top seed. We got a 1959 Sidharth. I don't know if that's how you say his name. Do you know?
He goes by Sid.
Sid. So, okay, let's go, Sid. Sid is a guy who someone picked for the Dallas match play,
That
right?
is correct.
But he didn't win that.
Not quite.
Okay, maybe he can roll into Mississippi and take care of the locals there.
So I'm going to go with Eric Kahanen. I think he's from the New Orleans area, and I've heard some good things about him before. I feel like he's a librarian, so I feel like he has all this time to study while he shelves books. He can just read the dictionary.
That's
so I'm going to go with Eric Kahanen for Yazoo, Mississippi.
Apologize to all the librarians out there.
The second tournament we're going to predict is a local one for us. It's Stratford, Ontario.
Now, you're not on this list.
I'm not on this list.
Are we going to make this number 15?
We might. I'm still considering it. I'm not sure whether I'm going to go. We'll see what my schedule's like as school is starting. Come on, we all know I'm going to...
You go to school?
I do on occasion. So I'm going to take this one.
Wait, has high school started this week?
Yeah, the high school starts a bit earlier than university, so
I see.
I've already been. I'm going to go with Ari Sink. He is one of the tallest Scrabble players. He's also cool because he only plays on Saturdays. He's one of the highest rated players, probably the highest rated player who's never played a multi-day tournament. So I'm going to go with Ari.
Right.
He has a lot of experience in one days. I think he's going to take this down.
Okay. And you picked Eric there. I'm just writing these down because otherwise we have to go back on the video and try to figure out who is doing what. I'm going to go with Chris Sykes. Chris Sykes always has pretty amazing word knowledge. So
we are going to keep this as chalk, aren't we? We're just chalking every single time.
Look, the problem is now we're keeping track of who won. So
there's some big
Money
money on
there are
the line.
stakes. Okay, so the next tournament is happening in Bethlehem.
Bethlehem, Philadelphia.
Pennsylvania, maybe?
Pennsylvania. I always think Philadelphia is the state. So
right. So here we go. I'm picking first here. Now, I believe I've met both. Oh, I see who your pick is.
You know who I'm picking.
Yeah, I know who you're picking. Okay. I am, rather than just go chalk all the way, I've interviewed Rick Julian before. Edwin Roth, I think I've met, I believe. Plus, he's from Pennsylvania, so I'm going to go hometown boy, Edwin Roth.
All right, and I am not going to pick the top seed, Rick Julian. I'm going to pick Joe Petrie.
You love that guy.
I love Joe Petrie. I met him in an elevator. He won me a $5 bet. This is pretty much all I could ask for from anybody. So I've got to go with Joe Petrie. He's going to take Pennsylvania down.
There you go. And
got the state.
Ken A says Ed Roth wins. That's all he does is he wins.
So we are going to move on.
That was tournament talk.
We're going to move on to our controversial topic of the week. Thank you to the 106 people who voted in the poll.
Oh, we should also say thanks.
Yes, we should.
Thanks to these guys. So here we go. We set this up for us.
All right. So once again, we had Sean Abassi and Evan Borofsky who are going to join us on the show tonight, but unfortunately they couldn't make it because of technical issues on our part. And we just want to wish, firstly, Cosmo, that's Evan's cat. We want to wish him a very happy snooze, which is I'm sure what he's doing right now. And also we want to wish Mariam and Sean a very happy first couple months of marriage. This is
the first NASPA Tonight that they're watching together.
Wow, wouldn't that be special?
Absolutely.
I can only dream of that
But
one day.
beautiful actually, both of these are really beautiful pictures.
Yeah.
And Evan says the bottom picture is not him. Again, when you see a cat on the screen, if you want to give us a meow or a purr in the comments, we would really appreciate it. That's just saying thanks to those guys for being giving of their time. It was our fault. Something went wrong on our side. So you can look forward to seeing Evan and Sean on a future episode of NASPA Tonight.
Absolutely. So we're going to move into our controversial topic of the week. This week, as you probably know already, it is, should Nationals have a playoff? If you recall, 2015 in Reno, they actually introduced the playoff, and it was very controversial. A lot of people hated it. A lot of people loved it. I know a big issue was that they seemed to have introduced it really late on. They didn't tell people about it beforehand. Suddenly, everyone was, it got sprung on everyone, and they were like, what is this? I'm not okay with this. And some people were like, finally, playoffs.
And ultimately, Reno, the attendance was quite a bit down. And that's one thing that I've been consistent on is they could have done a lot better job, like by saying, hey, playoffs are really cool. This is what's cool about playoffs. We're going to try this. There could have even been consultation, right? But because it sort of just got announced in the terms when you signed up, there were a lot of people who got upset with that. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the people who got upset. It still ended up being a great event. Were you in Reno?
I was in Reno. I was annotating in Reno, and I loved the fact that there was playoffs. It was so exciting to watch all of these top players duke it out, especially in the like the match play style that they do. Like you play a little series with your opponent. I think it's super exciting. They also introduced the Twitch stream that year. I think that was the first year they had the Twitch stream, and it was just super exciting to have all of this new technology out there for really broadcasting Scrabble to a larger audience. So I think those two go hand in hand. Having the stream, having the playoffs go super well together. We had some comments from people that said some similar things. I don't even know.
Let's walk through here. So some of the things that we're talking about tonight are all divisions versus just the top divisions. So there was a lot of concern the last time, like when you bring this all the way down to Division 4, that you're cutting people out of the ability to get up into, a money spot or whatever it is. So I think that there are a lot of people who think, okay, if we ever touch playoffs again, just because that's like, touching a hot pan on the stove, like you want to be careful. So maybe we just start with Div 1.
Yeah. And I mean, the other reason to just do Division 1 is that since playoffs go so well with like a live stream and for like the excitement factor of broadcasting, it kind of makes sense to not have the other divisions having a playoff if they're not going to be live streamed, because it kind of gives everyone the chance to play the same number of games. It feels a bit more fair that way. And then you just have the championship division being broadcast and having the playoffs. So I think that's why a lot of people think that only Division 1 should have playoffs. Some other people think that it should be fair all across the board. Whatever Division 1 gets should be the same all the way down the divisions. So another question we had is, should it just be TWL Division 1 or should we also have Collins? And Jason Bursma had something to say about that.
Sort of shocking.
I couldn't believe it when he said this. I'm surprised there's not more wow reactions. As long as CSW as well, I'm all for it.
This is a popular opinion.
It is, yeah.
People feel like there should be parity across these divisions. One of the things that comes up, you mentioned the Twitch stream before, there's always a lot of talk about whether we should be showing games, one TWL, one Collins, and back and forth, keep everything as even as possible. But there's also a school of thought that we should keep it to one lexicon to reduce any kind of confusion in the audience, and to keep focused on the same players who are gunning for a particular prize.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. Like on the Twitch stream, we have thousands of people watching, most of whom are not current Scrabble players. They don't know how the system works. They don't know how the tournament works. And so I can only imagine as a new viewer, you keep bouncing back between dictionaries and the commentators are trying to settle this. Like, oh, now we're at Collins. It's not really the real championship, but it sort of is. And I think it just gets confusing. I would be even happy just to have only Collins streamed and we just pretend, sorry, Jason, that is the real Division 1. I think it's good to have just one lexicon playing on stream, in that same lexicon having playoffs. What do you think?
Yeah, and I would think the lexicon that made sense is where the big money is, which today is where TWL is. Maybe that changes in the future, either through fundraising or through different policies or whatever. So while I believe in equality between TWL and CSW, and I tend to be a big tent Scrabble guy, the more people playing Scrabble, the better. Let people play what they want. I think when we look at that Twitch stream, and we're getting a little off topic here, but when we look at that, it's our best chance to put our best foot forward to show people what competitive Scrabble is. And I don't want there to be confusion in that. Now, Joe Neff says, why not 2 streams? What I would say is probably cost. And again, it goes to what the goal of the stream is. Is the goal to service the existing community? That's probably been true, partly true. Or is it to attract outside people? So if you have enough money to do both of those things, then I think you could do 2 streams and people switching back and forth. But now you got to double the amount of commentators. You got to do more tech, all that kind of stuff.
And also it splits the viewership. You might have fewer people in each stream rather than double the people in one stream, which is probably good for getting more outreach.
And Jillian says most of the Twitch viewers are trolls, so Josh Sokol would be happy to welcome in
most Scrabble players are trolls anyways, so I'm not too worried about that. I think that's the audience we're trying to go for with the stream. So another subtopic of this that we had was should we have just a finals like the World Championship often does, or should we have the quarters and semis and finals like we had in Reno?
And Benji weighed in on this. So
Yes.
let's put this up on the screen.
Benji says, playoffs are great. Make nationals 28 rounds with a 5 or 7 game finals that everyone can watch on the final day. Does it increase variance a little bit? Yes. Is that okay for better viewership and a better narrative? Absolutely.
And just
What do you
explain, well, variance is basically, go ahead.
So it basically means that the best player does not win quite as often if we have playoffs, because there's a bit more luck involved, because maybe you get an easy matchup and they also cut it off after 21 games. So you have a lot more people who kind of luck into a good tournament for the first half, and then they can just coast in the finals or the quarterfinals. So that's what it means by variance. It means that you're not going to see Nigel winning quite as often, and it'll just be a bit more of a crapshoot. Not by much, though. We also had Kenji commenting saying, kind of alluding to some math that he didn't put in, but saying that it's only a tiny bit more variant. It's only a bit more luck-oriented when you have the playoffs. It's still largely skill. And
I also think Benji talks on something pretty cool here, which is the idea that on the final day, for those that want to stick around and watch it, can be there and basically do like a viewing party. They used to have this as part of nationals, and tons and tons of players would stick around and watch this high level play, right? Because obviously, excuse me, the most motivated Scrabblers, well, I shouldn't say that. The ones who are, you've got a lot of motivated Scrabblers at nationals. And the idea of having them there all together, I would make it like a little party almost, like the opening party at nationals that we had there for a few years.
I think it's a good idea. I think it's great. We do it at Canadian Nationals as well.
Absolutely.
Anyone who's been there, if you're Canadian, we have the finals on the last day, and we have everyone else crowding into another room to watch and kibitz and everything. So this is, and also what I did, I created a couple photos to illustrate how much luck there is involved in this playoff system. So what I did is I went back the past 3 nationals, that is 2016, 2017, 2018, and I compared what the standings were after 21 rounds and what they were after 31 rounds, which is the end of the tournament. So 21 rounds is where it was cut off after in 2015. They took the top 8 and they just did their own separate bracket. So if you look in 2016, 6 out of the 8 people who ended up finishing in the top 8 were also in the top 8 after 21 rounds. So this is a little confusing. On the left side of your screen, that's where they finished.
That's
David
the
Gibson
final
winning
over Ian, right?
Those are the final standings on the left.
Yes.
On the right, we have the standings after 21 rounds. So had they done this this system of playoffs with quarterfinals starting after 21 games, the top 8 on the right would be who would be going into these playoffs.
So 6 of the 8 were there, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying is it was pretty similar. The standings after 21 games and after 31 games were pretty similar. So it's not like standings after 21 games mean nothing. And it also means that one big complaint people have with playoffs is that, like, oh, what if you're in 16th place after 21 rounds and you have a really, really good run and you end up winning the tournament? So one answer to that is that this doesn't actually happen very often, because most of the time the winner after 31 games is in first after 21 games. So
and Kenji did. We'll go on to number 2 here, but Kenji did a great job of lining this out, spelling it out on the post, where he basically said that has never happened, and that there's been a case where someone who was outside the top 8 after 21 won all 10 of their games and still didn't win. That's
in 2013, Goman Peña-Sofanlert was he was 14-7 after 21 games, and he won all of his next 10 games, and he still didn't win the tournament. So this is what we have here is now the 2017 stats, the comparison. On the left, we have the final standings, and on the right, we have the top 8 after 21 rounds. And this time, I think it was 7 people from the final top 8 were also in the top 8 after 21 rounds. So as you can see, the same winner, Will Anderson, was in first after 21 rounds and after 31 rounds. So no one ended up making some huge run to come back and win it. And then finally, we have this past year's results. Once again, I think it was 5 people this time from the top 8 in the final standings were also there after 21. So the point of sharing these photos is just to kind of illustrate the fact that it's pretty rare for someone to make a huge run after 21 games. And so eliminating the rest of the tournament after 21 games is actually kind of fair, if that means we can have the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals.
But is that a position that you personally take? You would go quarter, semifinal?
I would go quarter, semis, finals. I think it's like a very exciting thing to stream quarters, semis, and finals rather than just streaming one round at a time. I feel like it kind of gives a bit more of a storyline to the whole tournament if someone tunes in to the semifinals rather than tuning in to round 26.
Well, I think it's possible that we could get there, but if I were making a push or making a vote, the interesting thing is it's the advisory board that has a vote every year as to whether or not we're going to have playoffs. And in each of the last 2 years, that vote was 6-6 out of the 12. And ultimately, the EC serves as the tiebreaker in those situations, and they went with no playoffs each of the last 2 years. Now, we've had some changes in the AB. You're a new member of the AB. You're obviously very pro-playoffs, so it's totally possible that we could see this happen. My personal preference is, if we do see this happen, is introduce it in a very, very limited way to begin with, get people used to the idea, and then see what the post NASC surveys, what those return. And I think it's important to mention here that post NASC survey is still live. And you can comment on what you think about playoffs versus no playoffs, or a limited playoff versus a longer playoff, or even sort of the viewing party option, like having a very short playoff after all 31 games are done, like a best of 2 or best of 3 of just the top 2 players. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't filled out that NASC survey, you should do so. It should be available on the NASPA Facebook page. If you can't find it, message me and I'll send you a link to it.
Yeah. I think that would be fine. I would be happy if we just did a final. I think the last time that the Nationals had like that classic finals format was in 2006. Jeff Teveno, if you're still there, I think you can tell us a bit about that. As far as I know, you were playing Jim Kramer in the finals there. I think that was the last time that happened. I think it would be super exciting. I've never seen it at Nationals. I would love to see it. So at the very least, I will be lobbying for that on the AB. Finally, we have another comment from Art Moore.
This one's a little tougher to read, but
it is.
Why don't you read
I'll
it out
decipher.
there,
So
Jackson?
if we could recapture the buzz of the Sherman-Richards showdown at NASC and the Anderson-Richards finish at Niagara every year, I would look to find a way to do it. I don't know there's a director anywhere who would prefer Gibsonization with 3 rounds to go versus a championship decided in the final round. Or heck, the final play with strings.
Yeah, we got a really exciting NASC this past year.
Yeah.
That's the point.
And I think what he's really doing is giving a little shout out to Will Anderson for being Gibsonized after day 4 in 2017. And I think no one really appreciated that because we wanted to see an exciting final. So Will, next time you win Nationals, we would really appreciate it if you just keep it down to the last game just to keep it fun. You can still win, but we just want you to keep it interesting all 31 rounds, if that's okay. Hopefully, if that doesn't happen, we can get finals in there. So one thing that's interesting to me is, Josh, it seems like you're also pro playoffs to me.
Yeah, but again, limited.
Limited. Okay, so we have slightly different opinions. I am all for the top 8, just like we did in Reno. I think that's the most exciting way to do it. If we could do playoffs the entire tournament and just make it an entire like round of 64, round of 128 match play style, that would be cool as well. I doubt people will go for that though. So since we've been very pro playoffs so far, I just want to entertain a couple ideas against playoffs. The main one is just that if you were to eliminate everyone after 21 games, it really makes everyone else outside the top 8 have not as good an experience afterwards. So the question is, what do you do after 21 rounds if you're to eliminate everyone else? I think one thing that Ben Schoenbrunn was advocating for was to have side events. I know a lot of other games do this. I'm not sure exactly. I think Super Smash Brothers does something like this, where after a certain amount of people are eliminated, they'll have side events. Like you could do mini tournaments. For Scrabble, you could do things like Duplicate. You could do speed Scrabble. You could do team Scrabble, stuff like that.
Poker definitely has follow-up events once you're eliminated.
That's true, yeah. So there's a precedent for this in other games. I think this is a great idea. If you're to go the route of having quarterfinals where you eliminate everyone else in the tournament, I think it makes sense to just have other side events and people can have fun in those events rather than making everyone else play. That was the biggest downside of Reno, I think, where after 21 rounds, the top 8 in each division went on to their playoffs, but everyone else in the division still had to play the rest of their games. And that's 10 games that were mostly meaningless. You were playing for some small prizes, like a few $100s, but everyone knew that they weren't playing for any glory. They were all playing for 9th place at best. So I think if we are to do the full quarterfinal, semifinal, finals approach, we should also be developing a system for what to do with the other people who are eliminated. Because I don't think it makes sense to force everyone to play all 31 games, because a lot of people think that they don't want to waste their time sitting indoors playing 10 games of meaningless Scrabble.
Look, people want 31 games. But anyway, this is a point that will be argued back and forth, but I think that's an interesting take, is if you were to end that early, there's a way to address it.
Yeah. So that is all we have for tonight's episode. We want to do a quick birthday shout out if Josh is ready for this. Okay. So before that, I will do a quick preview of next week's topic, which is going to be about the ethics of phonying. So get ready for a poll. The poll is going to come out on Friday. You can start thinking about phonying for now. I know I think about it a lot. And before we do that, we just want to do a quick shout out for a couple tournaments. Firstly, Shediac. I know Pierre Cormier has been posting in NASPA quite a few times about this tournament, but I would like to give it my own recommendation. I've been to both tournaments in the past 2 years, and they have been spectacular both times. And please give us another meow for the 3rd appearance of a cat. Kind of ridiculous, this level of cathood. So Josh, you got some birthdays.
Yeah, just one thing. Jason Vaisberg is watching, I think, for the first time, at least from what I remember seeing. And they have not announced a 2019 location. We still expect that to happen, and we're going to bring you that announcement live on NASPA Tonight. We love all of you people who are watching, and especially those who are commenting, and doubly especially those who are meowing and purring. But we also love people having birthdays. So I want to give a birthday shout out to Narassus, to Ida Ann Shapiro, to Diane Brown, Paul Epstein, Doug Baxter, Michael Effenkatz Eldieri, Randy Dandy, Chris Sittler, Tariq Pervez, and Grant Rowland. Happy birthday to all of you lovely people.
So we want to thank everyone for tuning in to the 2nd episode of NASPA Tonight Gets Controversial, the unofficial title of this series. So once again, next week, we're going to bring you some ethics of phonying. If you have any thoughts, if you have any videos to send or cat videos to send, please send it over.
Yeah, we'll take anything you have and incorporate it into the show.
Even like a squirrel that looks like a cat.
Yep. And, play tournaments. Support your local directors. These are people working to give you a good time. So thanks very much, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you next week. Make sure to vote in the next poll, which will come out on Friday, earlier this week. Right, Jackson?
Oh, yeah. Have a good week.
All right. Bye, everybody.